Welcome back. You're watching our budget special. The spotlight is on India Inc. and what it is looking towards the finance minister for. We still have Rakesh Biani and Ramesh Chandak over here in the studios. Joining us now on the show is Surinder Kapoor of SonaKoyo. He joins us from New Delhi. Mr. Kapoor, thanks so much for joining us. You know, the auto sector has come out of a pretty bad patch. Given the kind of slowdown that we've seen over here, what can the government do? What can the finance minister do, according to you, to rev up growth?
Well, you know, the two sectors which have been, in my view, affected most badly, first is the commercial vehicle sector. And for that, frankly, we have been saying to the government for a long time, the industry has been, that on the one hand, we're talking of fuel efficiencies for the future, for the current products. And on the other hand, we've got old products in the market where the fuel efficiencies are very, very poor. Pollution is a huge problem. So why don't you start a scrappage scheme, which frankly has been done in every country in the world. So let's say if you scrapped all the vehicles before 2000 and you were to buy new vehicles, there would be some scheme to incentivize people to do that. Not only in the metros, but also in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. I think that's where the finance minister could most certainly bring about a change in the commercial vehicle fortunes. Secondly, as I said earlier, I think the government needs to not give a ban on buying buses because the bus fleets are required for renewal, for refurbishment, as well as new growth that is required. On the passenger car vehicles, I think there is a need to probably standardize or create an equilibrium for excise duty. There are too many excise duty for big cars, small cars. I think you need to be able to standardize those. But here again, I'm told that the finance ministry's figures show that despite the not growth in the passenger car, the excise collections have been quite good this year compared to last year where there was a large growth. So we have in the passenger car vehicle segment, I think now a new element, which is the e-mobility, which the Prime Minister recently announced. I think there needs to be real incentives given to go forward in this electric vehicle mobility sector, whether it's hybrids or it is pure electric. And I think there should be some encouragement given additionally for consumers to not only buy, but for infrastructure for e-mobility to be put up, which should be incentivized, which is really done globally.
Those are very specific pointers, Ms. Kapoor, but I've got two questions because you're also talking about all the announcements in the run-up to this budget, and we've had a fair bit around diesel prices. First, over the last few years, we've seen a skew towards diesel cars with a partial deregulation now. How do you see things panning out? Will it hurt the growth that has already been there? And you know, a lot of people argue that it was because diesel was so cheap that we actually did see that kind of growth in the auto space.
Well, you know, I think what the government needs to do is announce a policy which is long-term. I think one of the problems that most people in the automotive industry, and look at the case, there are some cases of specific vehicle manufacturers that did not bring diesel cars to India. The others have not installed their own diesel engine capacity and have had to buy diesel engines from others. I think we need to have a policy which states that this is how it's going to be in the long term. Frankly, to one day increase diesel prices or decrease petrol prices confuses the consumer, because the consumer also doesn't know how long is this going to last. So as we stand today, most certainly there's a preference for diesel. As we stand today, there is beginning to be a preference for petrol because of price differentiation being narrowed. I think people are now trying to judge at what price point do I cut off and buy a petrol. If, for instance, the diesel tax on diesel cars is going to come about, frankly, that will probably equalize and be more favorable to petrol-driven vehicles. So, as I said, I think, look, businessmen or consumers, for that matter, want to work in a known environment. I think the more unknown we make it, the more difficult it will be for all of us.
The pain in the auto sector has been most visible in the auto component industry. A lot of it is the small and medium scale enterprises, Mr. Kapoor. What needs to be done specifically for this space? Because you also need to scale up.
Please understand the auto component industry. There are about 60% of the people are SMEs, small, medium companies. I think they need to upgrade their technology. Whilst I think for the larger companies, R&D is being incentivized, I think for the smaller and medium-sized companies, there really needs to be a fund to be created for subsidizing and incentivizing small and medium companies to improve their technology and do development of new products. You know, time has come now when I am seeing a lot of these foreign majors which are coming in from Europe and now even from Japan and Korea, bringing their tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers, which actually threatens the small and medium-sized auto component manufacturers of India. And I think the government needs to recognize this because they're large employers at the same time. They need to recognize that unless they support them in development of technology, they're going to be in trouble.
Rakesh, let me take it forward from the last point that Mr. Kapoor made. The fact is that the most pain is felt in the small and medium scale enterprises that provide the supplies to all the big guys like you. At the end of the day, from a budget like this, are you hoping for some kind of relief for that end? Because in a growth year, that's also where it all gets blocked because they can't scale up. They can't move up the value chain as fast as you can.
No, I think for our business, all the small and medium enterprises are very critical. We would not be able to grow our business if they don't grow with us or if they're not able to continue to run their business efficiently. And I completely agree that, there is time that they are about to upgrade. And what the budget can address is the fact that, there is customs duties, right, which is what can be addressed in terms of how to do that. It's about ECB borrowing. It's not the easiest thing to do today in this country. For a smaller guy, it's actually even more difficult. But that's the way he can manage the cost significantly lower for himself. If he has to expand, do capital expenditure at the rate that he's doing, then I'm dependent on diesel-based power because power is not the easiest available. We're actually designing everything for him to fail. And that's not going to work, because he's going to be, the grid supply is very limited amount of power in majority of the states. So unless we don't resolve the power sector, how are we going to address the fact that the factories will keep running?
Right.
For our own business, the worry is the fact that if this is the way we are going to keep running, power is already at one of the highest costs. 23 US cents per unit that's what we are paying. It's about 12 rupees a unit. And if it's going to go further up, in the pecking order in terms of the cost that you incur today, power is among the 3 top costs that you're incurring in running a retail chain.
We head into a short break. We'll continue our discussion. We'll also be joined by Vivek Nair from Leela, looking at the hospitality and the tourism industry. This is one of the biggest employers of the country and one area which has been going through a pretty rough patch. We come back and talk about what needs to be done there and what are the big ideas that the finance minister can come up with this time around. Stay tuned.
अरे भाई डिसाइड करो ना कौन सी लेनी है।
सारे ही अच्छे हैं, सारे ही दे दो।
क्या?
चले?
रुको! साइड प्लीज। अरे कैश क्यों? मुझे भूल गए क्या?
सॉरी, आदत से मजबूर।
जहाँ भी जाओ मुझे साथ ले जाओ।
स्टेट बैंक डेबिट कार्ड एक खुशियाँ अनेक। अब स्टेट बैंक डेबिट कार्ड को SBI POS टर्मिनल पर स्वाइप करने पर कस्टमर और मर्चेंट दोनों पा सकते हैं कैशबैक। शर्तें लागू।
Bringing the world together, building the world together. Binani Cement for generations to come.
आपने बिजली का बिल अब तक नहीं भरा? कब भरेंगे सर? क्या आप टेंशन फ्री लाइफ जीना चाहते हैं? अब अपने मोबाइल फोन से स्टेट बैंक फ्रीडम पे लॉग ऑन करके कीजिए बिल्स पेमेंट। स्टेट बैंक फ्रीडम, तो हुआ ना आपका बैंक आपकी जेब में।
Welcome back. You're watching our special on what India Inc. is looking forward to in this budget. And nowhere has the pain been as evident as the tourism/aviation/hospitality industry. What needs to be done to get this side back on track? Vivek Nair of Leela Hotels joins us now. Vivek, as I said, the hospitality sector has gone through a pretty rough patch. How bad are things looking? Then what can the finance minister do to get things back on track?
First, of course, is the multiple taxation which you're burdened with. We have service tax imposed by the central government, luxury tax which varies from up to 15%, and then VAT, excise duties. So altogether, the levy of tax is about almost as high as 16 to 18%, whereas in Hong Kong it is 0, and most competing Asian countries the average is just 6. So our plea has been that once the GST is introduced, the taxation to us on our sector should not exceed a maximum of 8%.
Right, Vivek. Also, one last question really on the investment climate. Over the last couple of years, you've seen so much of trouble in the hospitality sector, in the aviation sector, that a lot of the big building up plans have stalled, even though there is a huge gap to be filled. When do you see investments and growth planning back on track for companies like yours?
Sure. A key segment for us, of course, is the business traveler segment, and that, as you know, is totally dependent upon our economic growth. That's the reason why between 2005 and 2007, tourism had such a great impetus that a whole lot of high net worth individuals, developers, construction companies got into the business because they had the wherewithal to invest. And management companies, both Indian and foreign, are now setting up these hotels. So till then, we had only about 5,000-6,000 rooms which were being added. And since 2007, we now see about 20,000 rooms being added. But still, it's a long way off to add 180,000 in the next 5 years. And the most important thing the PM did was he appointed Pulok Chatterjee, who just come into his office, as the chairman of this high-level coordination committee. And I'm glad to report that all these recommendations have been taken up by him at this committee level, and they have been rolled out too.
Right, Vivek. Thank you so much for joining us today. That brings us to the other bit of the question. I think what has also hurt the economy, and you've all alluded to the fact that uncertainty has meant nobody's putting investments or money on the ground, and that is going to have a longer tenor of payback, because at the end of the day, jobs are not going to be created, and we'll probably see the slowdown expand and extend into far more. My question to you is that from this budget, if you were to look at the run-up to the budget has been good, all the right noises have been made, Mr. Chandak, but what will compel you to put money on the ground? What will you say that, okay, the worst is behind us, now let's look at investment?
See, we are completely driven by the government spending in utilities because we are dependent on the government spending. So actually government has to spend money, as I said in the beginning, they have to really allocate funds. The ACBs have to really strengthen their balance sheets and start putting money. And also to the extent wherever the private sector can come, government has to encourage that. That is the only way the infrastructure projects will come. That is the way only the investment in the equipment manufacturing companies will go. As of today, the equipment industry is operating at 60% capacity. And the kind of results we have seen in the last 3 days, what kind of results the electrical equipment industry has given, whether it's a Siemens or ABB or Alstom or Crompton Greaves or all the big stalwarts. I think most important really that we really need the demand to be created here. That will only help.
Rakesh?
On the budget side, if you think about what is the key to growth, and what I think that needs to be addressed very strongly if the retail industry has to survive, we need a new approach to urban India. Right? We've had policies which are helping the transport side about creating infrastructure. The Jawaharlal Nehru, I think, was the scheme which helped in creating metros, etc. And it's not, but that's not going to help. I think what we need is new master plans for each cities. And there has to be somewhere where we agree to a fact that these are the 15 or 18 cities that we are going to redevelop, and that's going to be shared, and that's how they are going to be the drivers of consumption, the drivers of growth, the creators of jobs. And when we do that, we will ensure the fact that the prices still remain real, because when you read through papers and you think about the cost of real estate that we are discussing across the country today, the cost of land that we are discussing, is India going to be viable at that price? Does India really need to be at that level? So that's a big question mark. I don't know, is it a day to celebrate when we see that, 120,000 rupees a square foot in Mumbai? Should we celebrate or should we worry?
Sure. These are larger issues, but I'm going to ask you, gentlemen, one last question and quick answers. The FM can't use a magic wand and solve all the problems. They are far too deep and far too widespread. What is the one thing that will get you a smile on your face on budget day?
I think one is definitely that their CST in the pending, as long as the GST does not come, at least they should put the CST at 1% or 0.5%.
Okay.
So at least then some facilitation will happen.
Okay, that's one specific one. Yours?
For me, I think, if the FM can, if there is one thing that he can do, I think we need to get a clarity on GST and a commitment on a roadmap to implement, resolving and creating a marketplace in India, not the fragmented market space that we have today.
Clarity and focus.
Absolutely.
That's the one thing that everybody over here is talking about. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for joining us on this special. Goodbye.